And we're live, and we've got a little reviewing the thing that's in the title. And Jeff was just telling me about how he's been watching Blake 7 and the unfortunate bad news that he's happened to him.
All I said was that the first 3 seasons on that channel, the thumbnail is just the same Blake 7 logo every time. But then in season 4, for whatever reason, they have thumbnails from something in the actual episode. And so that's how I knew that Tarrant, and Dana, for that matter, are still in it in season 4. So I knew they didn't get killed in season 3 because they're in the picture. But I have not looked up, despite being very tempted to, I have not looked up like future information about Blake 7. So. Which I really wanted to after this episode that we're about to review, because it was pretty mean what they did. But we'll get into that after Ben reads the summary.
Ah, interesting. That entices me. That did, about the fact that it was mean. Interesting. Right. So, okay, I'll put this. Behaving oddly, Avon takes the Liberator to Terminal, an artificial world that was created to study the evolution of humanity. Avon believes that he will find Blake there, but Servalan has been planting a false trail to ensure Avon and the Liberator. But Servalan has been planting a false trail to ensnare Avon and the Liberator. The Blake that Avon finds is merely a drug-induced delusion. Servalan strands the crew and attempts to flee in the Liberator, unaware that it is dying after passing through a particle cloud en route to Terminal. And what I realised, and didn't realise at the time, is whenever Avon was sort of like looking at those messages, and there were those weird messages on screen, you know, those weird effects?
Mm-hmm.
That was probably what was programming him. And let's just say that device was reused by J. Michael Straczynski in one of his future writing projects. Because I don't want to spoil that series, but yeah, it looks like, because it looked like to us, it was just like a load of blah, 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 like funny lines and stuff. That was probably like him being programmed and stuff. But then you sort of ask yourself, well, if Servalan can do that to Avon, why can't you do other stuff? And then, oh well. So even Terry Nation now, good news for next season is Chris Boucher decided, right, to keep Avon and Servalan separate from each other as much as possible.
No more spoilers, Ben.
Give us a good one, though.
Let's just stick to this.
Okay.
I mean, we can, if you want to, we could like review season 3 when we get done talking about the episode. But I don't know if you want to make that a different video or not. But.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we could do it in this one and then watch the next one. Okay. And so, so I've read through the plot. I could read through the plot in a bigger book for more detail.
Well, do you want to talk on my account?
Okay. So, what did you think of it then, Jeff?
I liked the beginning, with Avon having this mission they didn't want to tell anybody about, and, him being direct with everybody, and, I mean, obviously he was the best part of the episode. But so there was suspense in the setup.
Yeah.
And all the way up until the point where he talked to the Blake hallucination, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I could forgive the things that were kind of dull up to that point, because they were still able to keep it suspenseful as to what was going to happen. Other than I mean, obviously, I knew something was off because of the way they showed first Avon lying down and the device. If they hadn't shown that, I think it would have been more suspenseful than it was, because you wouldn't have had, this sort of very obvious clue that he wasn't really seeing Blake. But other than that, up to that point, up to the point that Servalan came in, like, that's where it just all went to crap. Everything about Servalan's involvement in it, from the so-called plan to all of that, was just garbage. I mean, Terry Nation is capable of writing stories that make sense. Like, even if there's, suspension of disbelief required about things, like, that's natural. Like in sci-fi stuff, and there's going to be, like, the android invasion in Doctor Who. Okay, there's some things where if you really think about it, you go, okay, well, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it doesn't matter, because they keep it so cool in terms of the atmosphere through the whole thing that it's still a fun story. This, it's like, it was a tease, because it's like, okay, I suspected it was probably something to do with Blake, and then, even before they showed the picture of him, but then obviously I knew, this is what, and then they have him in, for like a minute, and then it's like, oh, never mind, he's dead. And I did this elaborate, I mean, how many times have they been in the same room again, before, like, all these other things, and this is what she's going to do to get the Liberator, and then they don't explain what this thing that tore up the ship really was exactly. And I guess maybe nobody figured it out, but that's fine. But then it's like, somehow Servalan comes aboard. Like, previously they said somebody else who's a recognized voice has to program a new voice. Like, so Servalan would have had to do that process to, like, be listened to by the ship, and she didn't. And she couldn't, because the ship was falling apart and all the things. Somehow she doesn't notice that when she comes aboard, that there's, like, the whole thing is melting or whatever. And so it's this weird thing where it's kind of like
Yeah, she's been on it before.
It's kind of like I said about how the Travis's death was sort of like in Return of the Jedi, where it's like Darth Vader just sort of suddenly says, "Oh, I'll just pick up the Emperor and throw him over the thing."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's on the ship. Oh, like, oh, maximum power. Oh, now things are going wrong. Okay, now I'm gonna run off into the teleport, so I make sure I survive. I mean, just that was just, all of that was terrible.
For me, the most, I mean, I can forgive everything apart from the fact that she's been on the Liberator before. Maybe go, what is all this snot on this shit?
Yeah, it's like, okay, you need to, at least, if you're going to set up, a fictional world that has things that are not, don't go along with, like, today's laws of physics or whatever you want to call it, that's fine. But just at least stick to your own rules. At least stick to your own templates for how characters are, how things happen. When you just kind of just tear all that up and just go, well, we'll just kind of make it up as we go along. It just seems like a lackluster effort.
What they could have done is they could have done the whole thing without any of that green stuff on the sets.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. It's like, okay, I didn't actually mind that itself. I thought that in a way that was kind of cool. Like, to introduce this sort of menace that's so bad it's messing up the computers and stuff. But I guess, I don't know, maybe the set was expensive, because I don't know why they wanted to get rid of the Liberator. To me, that's not a problem.
Oh, let me tell you what was happening to the set. Because now I can actually talk about it, because it would have been a spoiler to talk about it before.
Hold on just a second, because I'll let you do that. But I just wanted to say, I wanted to finish my rant first.
Okay.
And just say that that's the thing with this, is I'm like, okay, there are cool elements introduced, but then everything, it's like you intentionally set it up to be, these things are cool, and then we're going to make all that not matter with the most garbage stuff possible. Like, Servalan just kills everything. And just putting her in there and making this convoluted, ridiculous plot that doesn't make any sense for her to have come up with to to get Avon to give her the ship in this place, like all of that was just, I don't want to steal Morgan's word, but it's trash. That's what it is. I mean, it's just like, it's complete nonsense from the beginning. Then you just go, okay, well, this is just, nonsense. But you introduce things that make it like we're trying to be cool and serious in some ways, and then you just ruin all of it. So it almost had the I don't know, obviously, because it's one episode. Terry Nation's the only one who gets writing credit on the episode. So I don't know how many different people messed with the script. Because I know there's some, obviously, Doctor Who stories that are longer than multiple episodes and sometimes have different writers even within a story. And when that happens, you sort of think, okay, well, something like the Daleks Master Plan, for instance, that started out written by Terry Nation, and then like halfway through, it switches to, I think it was David Whittaker maybe, or Dennis Spooner, I can't remember. Anyway, whoever was credited with writing the rest of it. Now, I still love that story, but there obviously is sort of a shift in the story at that point. And this almost seemed like that, where it was like somebody wrote one part of it to set things up, and then somebody else just came in and wrote the rest of it and screwed everything up. Anyway, yeah. So that's my take on that.
Part of that is because what I did notice that, because I watched unfortunately, they've not done a documentary of season D, but they have done a documentary of season C. And what happened was, because Kevin Davies was like a big Doctor Who fan and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan, and he was like a good documentarian of these two shows. And he said that what you said there is they may have added Blake to the plot because he was available, because after season 2 he joined the Royal Shakespeare Company, and that's why he was in the beard. That was the real beard on him.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought the look was good.
And so they went to Stratford upon Avon and they recorded that scene there. And then so that was probably a factor of it. Also, by this point, Terry Nation had moved to the United States, and so he had less contact with the series. And in between seasons C and D, Vere Lorimer took over from David Maloney, and Vere Lorimer travelled to the United States to discuss with Terry Nation how season D would go. It was originally the final episode of Blake 7, which is why the Liberator was destroyed.
No, it's kind of what it felt like. It felt like a final episode. A crappy one, but still it felt like a final episode.
And apparently the set, Jeff, from watching from Doctor Who folklore, is they never had standing sets. These sets had to be disassembled and reassembled. Yeah. And the Liberator set was designed by Roger Murray Leach. You know who he is, don't you, Jeff?
Yeah.
He's done some of the better Doctor Who sets. And he then went on to have an Oscar-winning career, I believe. And so the Liberator set was made out of fiberglass. And apparently during those 3 seasons, it was a set that had to be reassembled, disassembled and reassembled because the studio would be reused for other shows. It wasn't like Star Trek where they had a standing set, build it, and it's up there for like 7 years. And so because of this, the set got tattier and tattier and tattier. And so that was one of the reasons why they wanted to get rid of it. But that wasn't it wasn't really their thinking, oh, we'll get a new set. It was that they thought it would be the last episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know some other shows that had similar things. Everwood, actually, for their 4th season, actually filmed 2 different episodes. Or at least they filmed a final episode and several other scenes that could be inserted if the show got renewed at the last minute. Because it was not renewed, so they made it the final episode. But they had it ready so that if the network told them, you'll be back next season, they could change. They could put together the version that had things that would continue to the next season instead of ending the show.
Right. So what? So what we'll do now is I'll read out from the book the little bits, and then we can have a brief recap of season C, I suppose. Because
mine will definitely be brief.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends. It'll be up to you how much bashing you want me to do. Because if you want it to be brief, I can make it brief. But if you want it to be longer, I can go on.
Bash away as much as you like. I might learn something from it.
Probably not.
It's always good to get the censor's perspective, because the intuiting types, it's like they want stuff that's.
I represent all censors.
Well, it's the. You tend to like science fiction that's more action based, and
most of the stuff that you hear from him isn't, because it's all rant over how he felt about it. So you don't really get much of a censor.
The sensing feeling perspective. Well, you're here too, so you can provide the thinking, the sensing,
a little bit
thinking.
more balance by throwing me in there.
Yeah, well, you're
hey,
here.
Come on then. Over to you, Morgan.
Yeah.
It was trash.
Okay.
See?
Like, again, he the way he did say the beginning was better. I had a less in-depth analysis of how I felt about it. But the beginning was better, and then there were randomly furry monsters that attacked people for no reason. Didn't further the plot. It didn't do anything.
I forgot to include that in my rant about how that thing with Servalan talking so dramatically, saying that that's what humans evolve into.
Yeah, that was dumb.
What the hell? Shut up! Like, he said that during the episode, and I'm like, yeah, shut up. That's just dumb. Veto that out of the script. You're fired.
Yeah, most of the people needed to shut up. Especially Servalan. She didn't need to be in that episode at all. The Avon running around was boring. They just really took a lot of time for him to slowly go through hallways, and it didn't lead to anything.
That's again, like, Terry Nation did that in the original Dalek story, and it was just perfect the way they built the suspense up to the final scene. And it's the same idea in something like this, but it wasn't as compelling. But at least if it had a good payoff, it would have been worth it. But it didn't. Instead, it just was.
Yeah, it went
ruined.
downhill pretty sharp when Servalan showed up.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like almost like she appears, and it's like you can just feel the level of quality just drop off the table when that happens.
And I almost thought there was actually some intrigue happening. Like, at first I didn't really care, even though Avon was, acting funny or whatever you said at the beginning of the review thing. I didn't really care, and him running around was boring to me. But when they, knocked him out and then brought him back to that spot for no reason, that actually kind of did increase the intrigue, and then it just dropped back when they tried to explain it again. It was like, come on, really?
Yeah, like
it also didn't make any sense.
Somebody wrote the ending of somebody different because it was like they set up, they introduced these elements, so you're like, okay, well, when is that gonna be something? And it just never was. It was just there for no reason.
It also didn't make sense because then they did that 2 times where he was knocked out and then they put him in the machine, but he only met Blake once, and it was the first time. They didn't actually do it the second time, so that didn't really make any sense either. Even their own thing that they're making in the episode, which was dumb, didn't make sense in the episode.
Pretty sure they reused the same camera shots twice so they could not pay those actors an extra 63 cents or whatever it was.
I did remember Morgan did like Avon's gloves.
They were amusing, yeah, but he didn't punch anybody out with them to add that
Yeah, it
extra.
looked like he was suiting up for some kind of joust or something.
Yeah, medieval combat. That's what it looked like.
That would have been better. A joust would have been better than what happened in this episode. Even if Servalan has to be in it, then have them have a joust. Servalan gets stabbed to death. Everyone's happy,
Yeah, that is a much better ending to this episode.
Didn't throw her on the Liberator and blow it up. I mean,
But blow it up though. Don't have her say maximum power.
yeah, I mean she can say that, but then have it blow up right after.
Have it blow up in the middle of her line. Maximum.
on the
Has
power.
to say it, so the book can be called Maximum Power.
Yeah, it was dumb. Because I guess it was.
The weird princess chick from Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer had a better ending, because at least, you know, she got to say, "No, not the rainbow, bo, bo." You know, that was better. Come on.
Yeah. So aside from that,
Yeah, they
whoever plays her, I don't.
Jacqueline Pierce.
Yeah, whatever the scrub, I don't care. But obviously, somebody in the crew or writers or all of the above liked her, and therefore humored her attempts to get as much dramatic screen time and actions and stupidity as possible. And that's what ruined the show for the most part.
Yeah, she was very.
The fact everything she does is like, it seems like it's for the actor as opposed to for the story.
Yes.
Yeah, it started out as just sort of this annoying character that filled a purpose, and then she just got worse and worse.
It made the biggest turning point to me, because she was already terrible and wanted to get shot, but then it was like the point in which it was really just like there is no redeeming quality if she's ever in in an episode she's trash, is the one where they meet Dana on the planet, where they're just panning in the landscape, and then she's just lying there like posing for the camera, and then it's like, why the hell are you in this episode? And then she could have gotten shot at least 10 times during the entire thing, and that's not counting repeated shootings in one instance. And yet she wasn't, because plots? It wasn't even for the plot.
So I repeat what I said, like, if Blake is in fact actually dead, then his zombie corpse needs to come back in the last episode and just shoot Servalan like 5 million times, chop off her head, shoot her in various places, you know, a bunch of knives, arrow to the knee, you know, whatever, every possible way to just destroy her and every part of her, dig her up and kill her again.
Reanimate her just to kill her one more time.
Yeah, exactly. The ghost of Blake will haunt her for the rest of her existence.
So the writers have succeeded in getting you to hate the baddie.
Yeah. Yeah, she's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I don't hate her. It makes me not want to watch it.
It does, show. Yeah, because she's not.
Because
like,
when she's in, every scene she's in makes me just like, why are you letting this actor just trash your show like this? That's what it looked like to me. Because it was like, it seemed like stuff was written around her, really, even though she's not a main character. She's bad.
It's just they made her character garbage. I don't think it's her fault.
I'm fine with it being her fault. I don't care.
Well, there's certain things it might be, because I don't know how much, you know, the posing crap is her and how much is the director telling her to do that. I really don't know. I don't have a way to know at this point.
The posing is her. The posing is the actress.
Well, if that's her, then okay, I could fault her for that. Yeah. But you know, as far as over dramatic stuff, again, that also sometimes is the director telling the actor to do it more that way. So.
And it's like written and choreographed poorly. There's not enough just like straight up violence. Like the one time Travis like actually hit that one dude. You know, that was cool.
Yeah. That's the thing, is there's so many scenes where you're like, this is lame, where the times that it isn't lame, it stands out as you're like, wow, okay, somebody actually did something.
Yeah, so it's basically
respectable here.
Over the time of the show, it's been shown that they can do various things well.
Yeah.
And then they just don't instead.
Yeah, that's a good summary of it.
Right, so what we can do is I'll just read through this and then I'll start another hangout where we can go through season C. It doesn't have to be long. It can just be trash, all this good trash.
Yeah, we
That's
can do a
pretty
video
much
where all
it.
we just keep saying is trash.
You just list the episodes.
Yeah. So I'll read through this and then we can start another video. So writer Terry Nation, director Mary Ridge. Opening shot: big white pointy spaceship, followed by a bit of acting business from Paul Darrow. I think that's where he goes like this.
Yeah. I wasn't sure whether he had a migraine or what.
It was a little bit Shakespearean. Next section. You just described the story. Tarrant. From here on, it's downhill all the way.
Yeah.
And then
I said, when he said that, it already has been downhill.
yeah, the book's written harsh, Tarrant. Random insults. Villa. You've got to hand it to Avon. He knows how to keep a secret. He probably wouldn't even talk to himself.
See, I didn't take that as an insult. It was an astute observation.
Yes, are you even quite amused by that line at the time? In a nutshell, Blake returns. Or does he?
Yeah, for about a minute.
I've read story. Information. Villa, Callie, and Dana are playing what looks like Monopoly Intergalactic Freedom Fighter Edition. It's the electric one, too. There's an extra tenner in the shops. Oh, that's an extra tenner in the shops. Sorry, I messed it up. They're also drinking green. Avon's pulled a gun on Tarrant. Shoot, you idiot! Shoot! Tarrant looking at scanner screen full of stars. There's nothing out there. We're in the middle of nowhere. You're in space, you twit. That's what it looks like. It's amazing how Darrow can maintain interest in a scene when the only response he's getting is a monotone, confirmed.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about the show is Zen.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, it almost got annoying.
It did.
He's good with the dialogue when it comes on occasion, but when it's like too much at once, you know, him just saying confirm about everything, gets a little annoying.
No, I was fine with that.
And then you have it randomly, he like says this,
yeah,
I failed you thing.
Yeah,
and then you kill him off, and it's like
that wasn't cool. He should have gone out better than that. I don't know why they had to change him.
It's like what was he suddenly inhabited by Callie at the end?
Yeah, I was like, what is this crap? I mean, like if he had just cited the one time, right? Like maybe because he's already going wonky, right? But then he just kept repeating it, and I was like, don't make it worse. And then it was not helped by Squirrely's, back and forth with this. And I'm like,
yeah, well, I did like the part where Squirrely actually like was assertive about what he wanted the computer to do. That was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about behind the scenes on this, cool. But it really does seem like Terry Nation like wrote up to the scene with Blake and Avon and then just handed the script over to somebody else and said, here, you figure out a way to end this. That really seems like what happened, because otherwise I don't know what he was smoking that day, because
he wasn't particularly engaged with the series by that point.
Yeah.
He'd moved to the United States.
See, the reason I say that, I do have a bit of knowledge that that's an educated guess, because I know that that he pretty much did that with with one of the Dalek stories he wrote for Doctor Who. So,
yes, Destiny of the Daleks, and he just Douglas Adams
was,
said he handed him like an outline, and that was it.
Basically. So they ended up actually adapting someone else's script into the story, from his outline thing. So yeah, so there is precedent for him doing that, which makes me think that he might have done that with this too.
And then we got who carried the space monopoly in from the teleport room to the bridge? Avon's outfit is terrific. You should hang on to that one. There's a full complement of teleport bracelets in this story. The steady heartbeat of Terminal doesn't distract from the fact that it's clearly a field in Surrey. Glynis Barber's star sign is actually Scorpio. Isn't that funny? Same as Curtis Mayfield, Roger McGough, and Ainsley Harriott. She's not in this story, though. Right. Jan Chappell wears a wig on location, having had her own hair cut too short several weeks earlier. Dana's being given some excessively long lines as Villain notices the energy loss. Zen sounds a bit off. Something's eating away at the Liberator. For once, it's not the lack of budget. The links are almost too shocking for words, and not in a good way. There's a teleport bracelet on terminal, yet the Liberator has a complete stock. Are they replaced by the auto repair circuits, or is somebody on the ship manufacturing them? Blake is alive, and his beard is a great big fuzzy chin full of fun. Oh, maybe he isn't. The Liberator is covered in snot. That does not bode well. Zen's growing decrepitude is genuinely moving. Servalan appears to be drinking a cactus. How does Tuddenham manage to make Zen's death so sweet? Villa grabs Aurak. He's clever, that one. Those last shots of the Liberator, magnificent and very sad. Bye, you beautiful old thing. There's another page. Closing shot. Avon grins like a loon at the prospect of being stranded on an artificial planet full of monkeys. Delightful dialogue. Avon. Zen, you will remain silent until further instructions. Zen, confirmed. Right, I'll try and do my Avon voice now. Avon. I don't need any of you. This is as far as you go. I don't want you with me. I don't want you following me. Understand this? Anyone who does follow me, I'll kill them. And then Servalan, maximum power. The name of the book. Amateur.
Yeah, your Aurak voice is better than your Avon voice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Right. Amateur hour. The links. Truly rubbish. The guard who wakes Avon manages to do so by kicking the floor next to him. Always drags me from a deep slumber, that does. Well, actually, first time he'd kicked the floor, then actually kicked him. It looked a little bit more convincing after that. Additional scraps of knowledge. They call this bit Termination Street because there's a soap in England called Coronation Street. Termination Street. People in blonde wigs, reliance on life support machines. Seen that before, haven't we, Jeff?
Yeah, the blonde wig people were just useless. I mean,
yeah.
Part of the episode where you're like, what was the point of that?
Yes. Planets, and also bad costumes as well. Calitharon, Terminal, Jevron. Spacisms. Electrostatic locks, sonal keys required. Visual image structuralizer. Avon's well now count, 4. Right then, so we'll end it there. Come back with the next one, and Jeff can have a wicked one.
Wait! You didn't give your thoughts on the episode.
My thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, and your rating.
Well, I think it's really good.
Okay, why?
Because I like all the stuff with the fake memory and programming Avon and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I do think that they didn't need to put the snot everywhere because Servalan would have seen that and gone, hey, what's going on with this? I've been on the air 3 or 4 times before. I never noticed all this gunge before.
And what about what I said about, they had established that Zen would only recognize certain voice commands. So you had to have somebody else set it up so that you would have someone else's voice recognized.
Yeah, that's why I did it manually. But then why would they even bring it up beforehand?
Yeah. Maybe they
done it manually.
Well, you see, the thing is, by that point, those that were left on the ship knew that the ship was knackered, and so they would tell Zen, "Oh, look, you're dying anyway, but just listen to Servalan for a bit."
Why would they do that?
Because they know the ship's going to die in, because they know it's in critical trouble.
They didn't. They could have done that, which was stupid, but they could have done it anyway. They could have shown that, but they didn't. Why would you?
I agree. It's a little bit of a plot hole.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
a little bit of a plot hole that leads to one of the major things of the episode that I still didn't care about.
So I have a question, Ben, because obviously I again, you don't no spoilers here, but just at this point, you can tell me, like, when you saw this the first time, did you know? I guess did you know whether Blake would be or wouldn't be involved in this episode or a future episode? Like, were you aware of those things already, or was it completely new to you?
When I first watched it, no, I did not know.
Okay, because I know that it makes a difference. There are certain things, like with Doctor Who, for instance, where when I saw it the first time back in the 80s, I didn't know anything about Doctor Who. I mean, zip. So everything was new to me, which made certain things like huge revelations, like the first regeneration that I saw, because I didn't have a clue that anyone other than Tom Baker had played the Doctor when that happened. And then to make it even more confusing, the PBS station that I watched the show on went back to the beginning of the Tom Baker episodes right after that, the first time I saw it. So I thought that was the last episode of Doctor Who. And the way they ended the show was the Doctor falls off a building, turns into some younger guy, and that's it. I'm like, okay.
So yeah, spoiler for the first Doctor.
Oh yeah,
Doctor, guys.
Sorry for any people who haven't seen Doctor Who and have had their experience ruined. But I recommend anyone who gets into Doctor Who now just to go back to the very beginning and watch it from the beginning. So obviously, by the time you get to the fourth Doctor, regeneration will not be new to you. But it was to me at the time. But I was curious. I asked you about that because I didn't know how that would affect the viewing of it. Because to me, I mean, he can make whatever things he wants to be about my feelings or whatever. But yeah, I think it was mean to have, like, we're going to bring Blake back for this scene, and then, oh, never mind, he's dead. I mean, that to me is lame. And I say that now. My feeling now is that it's lame. Now, obviously, again, I haven't seen the last season. I don't know what comes after that. But up to this point, it feels like a mean trick was played on the audience. I'm just going to put it that way.
You don't know that Blake is dead.
You're right. I
know
don't.
that.
But I'm saying the feeling is, based on what happened in this episode, that it was a way to jack the audience around, and I don't like that.
Okay, fair enough.
Further along.
Yeah. So anyway,
Right.
Did you have any more to say about what you liked about it, or didn't like?
I liked all the stuff with Avon being programmed. I like the bit where Avon goes meticulous planning, the general and her reaction to that. I like the character of Servalan, but there were certain things I take for granted, like certain things that like sort of have to be accepted, like things that are not realistic in terms of like them killing each other. It's just that because I've seen so much of it, it's things that you learn to accept and look around or look past. I like the convoluted plots of Servalan.
You just straight up like convoluted plots. That's why you like the shows.
Yeah.
So it's better for you if it doesn't make sense?
No, it does make sense. It does make sense.
No, it doesn't.
That's the point. It doesn't make sense.
They're convoluted, but they do make sense.
If this was the first episode, then you could actually make an argument that it makes sense because they hadn't already established a bunch of other stuff about Servalan that's pretty much just all thrown out the window by that. Like, they just had her in the last freaking episode. Like, is that supposed to have been like... even they mess up the timeline because she says he died a year ago, but then the very previous episode, the previous like 2 or 3 episodes, like she's like going all across the galaxy doing these things, and then plenty of opportunities to have set up this thing with Avon. That like all the other things she did would have nullified that. So it's like, what, she just went through the last year setting up all of these contingency possibilities of, well, if this stupid plan doesn't work, this other thing is set up to fail after that. I mean,
we know what INTJs are like. I mean, the actual character's probably an INTJ. It's just that she's played
INTJ
I feel for INTJs if she is a representative of INTJs, because like there's even some like comic villains of things that are like INTJs that are pretty like stereotype INTJ mastermind villain type, and they're all better than her, like all of them. I've never encountered one that's worse than her. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I can think of people that, like, I didn't find compelling in any way. Like, they're kind of boring. But I can't think of anyone that had the ability to just come into a situation that was decent and ruin it as much as she does. So that's unique so far, things I've encountered. Because, like, on Doctor Who, you had the Master, where they kind of overused him. For a while there in the Third Doctor era, there was one season where he was in every story, and so it was just a matter of like, okay, when's he going to show up in this one? And a couple of times, they did it pretty well. His arrival actually sort of made sense, and but I could sort of set it aside the times where the story was good enough where it didn't really matter that okay, insert the Master where it doesn't really make sense, because sometimes it actually sort of introduced something that was sort of an interesting twist to it. I mean, other times it was just dumb. His actual introduction episode, or a story, Terror the Autons, I think that's what it was called. Anyway, at the very end, it's like all the Doctor has to tell him is, oh yeah, once you let them take over the Earth, they're not going to have any need for you anymore because they're just going to treat you like everybody else. And that's all he has to say. And then the Master's like, oh, I never thought of that. Okay, now I'm on your side. I mean, it's just it was just a really dumb ending. But he wasn't always like that. Anyway, and I would say, in fairness to Servalan, in the first season, she wasn't always like that either. Like it's some of her, like her scenes at the beginning, I didn't like her from the beginning, but she made sense in a certain context where it's like, okay, I understand, who this character is supposed to be, and there's sort of this political intrigue. All that's been dropped, of course, and I know. They sort of had a reason for that. Well, there was this war with aliens, so the Federation's not really intact anymore and stuff. But that took away the only interesting things about her, because there was sort of an interesting thing in terms of there's kind of the power struggle of the Federation. But without that, it's just completely useless. Anyway, so what rating would you give it, Ben?
I'll give it about an 8.
Okay. I would give about the first half, I guess, whatever the point up until Servalan appears, about a 7. And then everything after that, I would give a 2. So we'll average it and round down and make it a 4.
Okay.
So.
Well, previous episodes, you've given what I think you gave. Some episodes you've given 2 and 3 before.
Yeah, there was even at least one episode I actually gave a 1 to, and I don't even remember what that one was called, but I remember there was one really, really bad one. But.
Yeah. Right. So, okay. Bye, folks. And then
Bye.
We'll watch